So we're getting a fight card early this week. February 8th, this Thursday, we're getting Teofimo Lopez versus Jamaine Ortiz. The co-main is Keyshawn Davis versus Jose Pedraza. Starting with the co-main, I'll break down my thoughts on Keyshawn Davis versus Jose Pedraza. Keyshawn Davis is going to face Jose Pedraza in a 10-round bout. Jose Pedraza hasn't fought in about a year, and he's coming to the end of his career as well. Pedraza's been more of a gatekeeper as of late. He's 2-2-1 in his last 5. He's only been stopped once, and that was to Gervonta Davis. He got knocked down twice against Lomachenko, but he does know how to survive pretty well, because his other 4 losses come by decision. He is a former champion, but like I said, he's coming to the end of his career. He's got a quick jab, but sometimes he can slow to retreat, and he doesn't have much knockout power either. He's only got a 48% knockout ratio. Pedraza will usually use a high guard, and he's got quick counters, but when he doesn't use his high guard, he'll tend to use head movement, and it hasn't been looking as good as of late. Pedraza can also switch hit, and he's a veteran of the game. For someone like Keyshawn Davis, this is a perfect matchup so we can see where he really is. Keyshawn Davis is 9-0 with 6 knockouts. His last fight was a no contest, which is kind of bullshit because he got overturned due to marijuana. Keyshawn Davis trains with Bo McIntyre and Terrence Crawford, and he's a silver medal Olympian. Keyshawn Davis in his earlier fights has looked very good, and we've seen him go 10 rounds before. Pedraza has made 12 rounds, 10 rounds many times as well, but this will be Keyshawn Davis's toughest test as of yet. He's got a 66% knockout ratio, he's extremely quick, he's got good combinations, he can break down a high guard pretty easily, and I think with the result of his last fight, he's probably going to want to take this fight a little bit more seriously. Not only is this probably going to be his toughest test, but if he wants to make a name for himself and send a statement to the division, then I think he'd really need to put on a show against Jose Pedraza. He's looking at the tail of the tape. Keyshawn is 10 years younger, he's 1 inch taller, but Pedraza's got a ½ inch reach advantage, which to be honest isn't much. Like I said before, I think Keyshawn will want to put on a good performance. His last performance wasn't his best, but it was still good. But now it's time for him to really put his mark in the lightweight division. I'm going to take Keyshawn Davis to win by decision. Moving to the main event, this is a really good matchup. Teofimo Lopez is defending his WBO Super Lightweight World title and the Super Lightweight Ring Magazine belt. Fight's going to be 12 rounds. Teofimo Lopez is actually a year younger than Jamaine Ortiz, Lopez being 26, Ortiz being 27. Both fighters are orthodox, except Jamaine Ortiz can switch it. Both fighters are the same height, and Ortiz has ½ inch reach advantage. Teofimo Lopez is 19-1, and Ortiz is 17-1-1. Lopez has been knocked down about twice in his debut fight and against George Kambosos, and Jamaine Ortiz was dropped twice against Joseph Adorno. He pulled away with a majority decision win in that fight. Some people thought he should have won, and Jamaine Ortiz's only loss comes from Vasily Lomachenko. It was also a really close fight, and there's no shame in losing to Lomachenko. Teofimo Lopez's only loss comes from George Kambosos Jr. It was a competitive fight, but Teofimo did definitively lose. He might want to say he didn't, he did. But he came back with a TKO win over Pedro Campa, had a close fight with Sandor Martin, and his last fight was a unanimous decision win against Josh Taylor. Ortiz's best win was probably Jamel Herring, former world champion. Ortiz put in a really good performance that night. Jamaine Ortiz is moving up from lightweight. He was ranked number 10 by the Ring Magazine, and this is his first world title opportunity. Jamaine Ortiz was a pretty big lightweight, so moving up to super lightweight was probably a good decision, but looking at him on the scales yesterday, he still looked a little weight drained. Ortiz is not a big power puncher at all. His last knockout came at the end of 2020, and it seemed like more of a TKO. He's got a 47% knockout ratio, and comparing that to Teofimo Lopez was the former unified lightweight champion. He lost it against George Kambosos, and then he moved up to super lightweight, beating Josh Taylor for the WBO World Super Lightweight belt and the Ring Magazine belt. Teofimo Lopez has got some power to him. He's got just under a 70% knockout ratio, but he hasn't looked super powerful as of late. He did get a TKO against Pedro Campa back in 2022, but his last stoppage win before that was against Richard Comey back in 2019. Teofimo Lopez's last knockdown came against George Kambosos in their 10th round, but he couldn't get him out of there. But Lopez himself has been down twice in the last 3 years, against George Kambosos and Sandor Martin. And to correct myself from earlier, he's been knocked down 3 times, against Kambosos, Martin, and in his debut. But in fairness to Lopez, He's never looked truly hurt in any of those knockdowns. Style-wise, this is a really interesting fight because I do think Teofimo Lopez and Jamaine Ortiz are really similar in style. They can be rangy, focus on left hooks and straight rights. They got good jabs, but they can overcommit with them or remain in the pocket too long. Easy to be countered. They both also tend to blitz in a lot when they want to cause action and take over a round. Ortiz's biggest issue for this fight is his lack of experience at this level, and Teofimo Lopez's biggest issue at this fight is his mentality. And what I mean by that is we don't know where it is. Teofimo Lopez, when he's focused and sees a threat in front of him, can be really dangerous and a top-tier fighter. But against someone like George Kambosos, who he thought he was just going to blow out of the water in one round, it cost him the fight. And I don't think he took Sandor Martin that seriously either, because that would turn out to be a tougher fight than it should have been. And Lopez is already talking about beating Jamaine Ortiz in the first round. And there are openings to beat Ortiz, and we've seen Ortiz hurt before, because when Ortiz got knocked down, he did seem very injured, compared to Lopez, who seemed fine. I do think Teofimo Lopez is a bit more durable, and he's got a bit more punch power, but I think Ortiz is coming in with a lot more desire to prove himself. But with that being said, going into my prediction, this fight is closer than the odds would like to make it seem. Jamaine Ortiz is a very live dog, and depending on where Lopez's mentality at, Ortiz could get the win. But if Lopez is focused, then I think Lopez should be able to pull out a win. I could see Lopez winning by decision or a possible later stoppage, maybe around round 9 or 10. But if you want to bet on Ortiz since he is the underdog, I would probably favor Ortiz winning by decision. But my prediction is that Teofimo Lopez will win by a late stoppage. Let me know what you guys think. Are you going to watch the fight? Are you going to wait for the highlights? Who do you think's going to win? Let's have a discussion in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.